Hey Andrea, how's it going?
Hi, Cathal. Great. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good. I'm really excited to get chatting today. Um, we
Me
both
too.
The context for the call, I suppose, is I shared an Instagram post on sacred site etiquette and how we kind of engage with sacred sites, and that post was posted by Ryan McKenna on Instagram. I shared it onto my stories, and you commented back. And we were both, it's obviously something in the field that needs talking about because we were both thinking of recording a podcast on it, and we just decided we'd hop on and have a conversation about it. So wherever we post it, we'll link that Instagram post first. But we're just, I guess, wanting to have a conversation about sacred site etiquette and what that entails. So would you like to kick things off? I know you're in Delphi at the moment, which is a perfect site, and I'm here by Lochgar in Ireland. So, what was your kind of initial response to that post and the whole thing around sacred site etiquette? Why is it important to you?
hmm Yeah, so my initial response was like, for me, it came like a confirmation, because exactly as you mentioned it, it's in the field. It wants to be expressed and shared. So a lot of people, most of the people could find out about this because sometimes people don't take in consideration um, um, proper way, let's put it this way, entering in sacred sites. So yeah, I think that was my first reaction to what you shared, to the post, and I'm just like, yeah, I
Mm.
feel the calling. Let's talk about it. So here we are.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned the proper way of entering sacred sites. Uh, why do you think um, why is that important? Why is it important to have protocol to know, the correct way to engage with these places, and what might that look like as well for you?
hmm Yeah, I think it's so. Now we are talking about sacred sites, and we are both in very important locations, right, where the energies are potent. And as in every special place, let's put it this way, these sacred places are also protected, right, by the keepers of the places. So therefore, I think is vital. I feel like saying vital to be aware of a protocol. And even if we don't know exactly what that is, because there are certain things that you find out as you go, to have a minimum of respect that can show up in our actions in these sacred sites. Would you like to explore that? How is it for you, Cathal? How do
Yeah,
you see this?
um, totally agree. I remember when I was, kind of first visiting these places and spending time at them, that I didn't have necessary awareness around protocols in terms of, doing rounds and how to engage with them like that. But there was certainly an element of respect and reverence and a deeper sense of actually listening within as to what was correct and what was appropriate, and kind of really building a sense of trust within that. Uh, so, what might be required for that is like a slower pace of being, in coming into the present moment, whether it's through breath, grounding, really allowing time to disconnect from the not quote unquote normal world as we're entering into these places that, um, the veil is very thin with them, and we enter into other states of consciousness and realms and that. But that was one of the first things I like really noticed or really struck me was listening, and coming from that place of okay, what's appropriate here. Yeah. What about you? What are some of the other things that you've kind of learned along the way in terms of how to engage sacred sites?
Mm-hmm. I would reinforce that, like listening was a very important key. And I see it a lot so I come from Romania originally, and we also have lots of sacred sites. And I came across people that came from far, far away without listening to the land, without listening to the place, trying to do their own things there in the space, like anchoring all kinds of energies or using that energies for all kinds of stuff, right? And you kind of see it all the time in these sacred places where people just come in and they try to do their own thing, to put it this way. And it's not always working out.
In terms of coming to a place with that intention, what might be some of the kind of consequences or repercussions? What can happen?
Well, that's a very good question. I'm not sure, but for example, I know for sure that some places are more protected than others, or the way the energy of the ground or of the sacred place will fight back in a way.
Mm-hmm.
In certain areas, I just discover it to be more powerful than in others. And like, for example, there is a very beautiful mountain in south of France, a sacred mountain is named Bugarach. And I organize retreats in south of France, right? So part of the retreat is going on the sacred mountain. And there you would find what people would call fairy fortresses or all kinds of, elemental temples, let's call it this way, right? And I remember in one particular year, we were walking on the path in the sacred mountain, and I could hear like very clearly that they wanted us to stay on the path, not go aside, right? So I was just communicating that to all the crew members, all the women that were joining me. I was like, because parts of these retreats is helping people connect with the sacred sites and with nature, following the protocol, showing respect and reverence towards nature and the forces of nature. And one of the women in the group, at a certain moment, she gets out of the path and she's like, "Oh, look at this!" There were stones with moss and kind of stuff. And immediately, like even if you didn't hear what she said, the energy completely shifted and closed down. Right? Everyone could feel it. Even the people that said they don't really feel. Like it was very clear and very obvious. And I have another example also from south of France. There are certain entrances towards what's called, let's say, the inner earth, or old places of initiation and worship, where sometimes in the right conditions, with the right people, with the right approach and intention, you can visit. And it happened to me that I went there, and at a certain moment, the energy totally shifted. Like you could feel it when the time is out and when the time is to come back to this other world. Because basically, sacred sites are portals to the other world, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you would like to add something to that, because like I was blessed to be guided by you in very special places in Ireland. So, would you like to add something to that?
Sure. Yeah. I was just going to ask you the same question as to um, what's your understanding of, these other places we go to when we're at these sites. And you just mentioned the other world, as the kind of term so many people use for it. And, our myths, our histories, our folklores here in Ireland and around the world have always hinted at a place that's unseen yet very, very close to us. It kind of maps over onto our 3D world here, but it's quite kind of ethereal in its in its state. And you're totally right in terms of these sacred places or these temples or these um, entrances are portals into this very, very um, interesting and curious place that we call the other world. That's just as animated and colorful as our own world here. And I definitely hear and acknowledge, what you're talking about in terms of um, the flow of energy that happens when we're guiding tours or guiding people. And it's like there's a sense of the word congruence was coming up when you're talking about it. That there's a sense of kind of being in the groove, and things are going smoothly. Things are flowing really, really beautifully and nicely. And I think proper protocol, what we're talking about tonight, really just enhances that. It allows like for a strong container to be held so that people can voyage safely
Mm-hmm.
into the other world and also return safely back into our world. Because that, if that gets cut or disconnected at the wrong time, or that can be really, really um, traumatic, and things can go awry and wrong. And I think both of us being guides, we're both very kind of in tune with this, and that's kind of developed over time and over um, periods of working with people and guiding people. But I think why this conversation is kind of it's within the field is because so many people are now revisiting these sacred sites, or remembering their connection to these sacred sites, and kind of thirsting for that knowledge of, well, how do I engage um, with this? And I think that's a beautiful place. If you're not sure when you're visiting the site, is to simply ask that question of, I come with respect and I come with good intentions. How do I engage with this place? I'm open to be shown or to be taught, uh, rather than, as you mentioned previously, going in and trying to do your own thing, kind of thing with these
Mm-hmm.
places. Would you like to add anything onto that?
Yeah, well, I think we can start with asking for permission. First of all, ask for permission. If you want to go to a sacred place, just ask for permission before it. Like you can make a small ritual, just light a candle, or make a prayer, or sit in meditation with this intention. Asking for permission to be in that sacred place. And if you don't know what to do, just introduce yourself. Just introduce yourself, your intentions, what do you want to do there. And I discovered this to be very, very beneficial. Like the moment you interact with the place, the moment you start preparing a journey, right? A visit to a sacred site, the energy starts anchoring and working with you already. And I have so beautiful encounters in multiple places in the world where I was literally welcomed. Like, you know, when you show up with respect, the place will receive you with respect. And if you come from that place of humbleness, because I think humbleness is also important in this. It's an important ingredient when you visit the sacred site. Just to have in mind that those stones or those temples or those fortresses are there for maybe thousands of years, right? That sacred mountain is there for way longer than I am and then I will be, right? Those things, so many ceremonies, so many healers, so many teachers, so many, people, so many events, and are still standing there. I think it is part of the big separation, humans versus nature, where we place ourselves on top of these things and we forget about humbleness and we just show up there. And I think that has to change, especially as these places are really, really powerful. And they are willing to work with us. They are willing to show us more, to unravel the mysteries that they are holding. So yeah, I think this would be like the first few steps. Asking for permission, introducing yourself, um, and just walk with humbleness, because in this way you can listen, you can allow the energy to work with you, and everything changes. Would you like to add to that, Cathal?
No, I just love what you shared there. Around asking for permission to enter into places, and um, I think it's such a beautiful and necessary point in terms of developing right relationship with these places, and seeing them as alive and very potent and powerful places, and that there's within that a reciprocal exchange. And you'll see in many places that offerings are often left, and it's in the spirit of reciprocity or the spirit of exchange, and that happens, and that's another way of, I guess, an important piece of etiquette is kind of leaving offerings behind as you're leaving, or as you're praying within these temples. Um, yeah. Um, do you have any particular offerings that you know of?
Well, it depends. Like, personally, I like to spend my time in meditation or, before, if I know I'm going to a secret site, and that's a form of offering because you're kind of sending your energy towards the place. It's just like knocking the invisible door before you physically get there. And that was amazing, to opening the doors in the sacred sites. Like, it happened multiple times that locals will just show up and offer me exactly the information that I needed, and it's something very precious and special when you have a local coming and unlocking those doors. Because as I understand it, our DNA, yeah, our ancestors are alive within us, right? And it's that DNA that will offer a different level of access to the locals, to the descendants of the people there, than someone that's visiting. Okay? In my own experience, it's not that the place will not be available to you, but it's a different level. It's like when you get a local guide, and that's not necessarily, in my case, in my experience, it's not necessarily that I'm booking someone in advance, but by preparing before going there, by purifying my intention, by showing respect, and so on and so forward, the place welcomes me with the proper guides, right? So the level of connection, it's one tune more profound than I would do it on my own, so to say it. And once I'm there, like, I prepare crystals, to offer crystals to the place, or I think it depends on the sacred side, but mostly crystals or some plants, some flowers, or it depends.
Yeah.
What about you?
Cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And um, I totally understand what you mean about the right people being in the right place at the right time. And just kind of receiving a nugget of wisdom or information that, it's a missing jigsaw puzzle piece in our own story and understanding of the mystery. That's quite special to receive. Um, and yeah, I totally agree with in terms of it can vary place to place. Uh, and I know, I know personally, I love singing and offering songs to a place or um, even a story um, like that. But also in a more kind of general um, view, the beings that inhabit the other world. It's some of the most appropriate offerings might be kind of oats or seeds or kind of copper coins you might see a lot, or seashells, apples. Uh, you'd often see, even if there's a hawthorn bush nearby, that there might be kind of prayer ribbons tied onto it. And it could even be, something personal to yourself, or to to the person. That I've often seen kind of just items being left almost as this is my final kind of giving up of this certain thing, whether it's a cigarette lighter or something like that, of a kind of, this is my prayer to release this, and to let this go. And um yeah, again, going back to like your intention for for the place, like being crystal clear in that, and then from that the whole kind of experience kind of weaves itself together, and the appropriate offering will come, or the appropriate guide will come and arrive, and that. So it's curious to see it all, and it's amazing to witness it all. It's one of my favorite things, is kind of witnessing those synchronicities occur. I'm curious, you mentioned before you visit a place, it starts to kind of work its magic and weave its mystery and medicine. I know you recently just arrived at Delphi, uh, in Greece. I'm curious if there's anything in the like previous few days you've noticed kind of preparing yourself for um, visiting visiting Delphi and the sacred site there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's my second time in Delphi, and I'm observing already because it happened the first time, and this time it happened, but not as much. Like I'm required to be more silent than normally. Like last time, I think one week before arriving here, I couldn't talk.
Mm.
Like my throat was just like congested. It was just like like just stay inwards and just be ready, prepare yourself. And it was a detoxing process because the moment I got here, like in the second day when I got here last time, my throat just start functioning normally, right? When it was the preparation, it was because sometimes we talk lots of stuff. Ideally, it has to be aligned to ourselves, to our core values, to our essence. And I don't know about you, but I'm still trying to cure myself from being too polite sometimes, and just try to pamper it out. But So yeah, I could observe that last time and this time in the past couple of days. So it was not so intense as last time. But I still feel this calling inwards, like come within to see, to connect to the mystery from within, right? Because I don't know how you see it, but in my experience, all these sacred sites, they are activating or um, making more potent certain aspects in ourselves.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Mm. Yeah.
Would you like to add to that, Cathal?
Um, I think you just, uh, for me, probably the most important point, you just, touched on it there in the piece of silence, you know, and really engaging, like really allowing yourself to drop in, uh, and to check in, and kind of going back to the first point I made of really listening, and for me, it's a very intuitive experience. Uh, you'll receive kind of promptings or um, intuitive impulses and that. And anytime I'm present at a place or guiding people there, there's always a period of silence. Always a period of silence to really allow ourselves to drop into that inner temple,
Mm-hmm.
and to pray essentially, but to see what's really going on and moving, and whether there's something to be shed and let go of, or something's birthing and coming alive within us, and just to allow ourselves time and space um, to see how we're being shaped and moved and molded, and at certain times of year. And so often these places they're built towards certain alignments, astrological alignments and seasonal alignments. um, so visiting them at certain times of year is quite powerful and quite potent, as is acknowledging and observing how we are at different points within the year and within our own life, and how that those natural cycles and seasons are reflected within, just as they are without. And I think the resulting of that process of engagement is a deeper sense of harmony. It's a deeper remembering of harmony. Me, because I think harmony is that underlying coherence of everything. And so often we're knocked out of, and it's just a case of allowing ourselves to kind of recalibrate and come back to center. And, you know, for me, that's what these places, these sacred sites ask of us, and allow us to find it as well. It's kind of like, kind of two-way thing. Uh, yeah. Mm, yeah. Mm. Yeah, that's, that feels good to share. It feels, um, you any other insights or,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a very important aspect. This aspect of going back into that harmony, or seizing that conversation, even with oneself, right? To enter these places. And as I was listening to you, it came to my mind that there are certain places that they are so powerful energetically that, for me, in my personal experience, my mind simply stops. It's just like like 0 point. That's it. Just drop in, because wherever you're going to try to think or translate to the mind makes no sense at all, right? And in the same time, I could recall certain sacred mountains, especially where if you're not aligned, if you're not in harmony within yourself or within someone else that you are visiting the sacred site with, all that energy of the place is just going to bring out to the surface the very thing that you have to work on, right? And you will have to, no matter how well you will try to push it in or cover it, it will come to the surface and it'll be like, look here. Like,
Yeah, such a good point. Such a good point. Yeah. I think that what you spoke of earlier, of that period of preparation before visiting these places, is almost, is the kind of purification process of purification. To Otherwise, it'll come out. These places are very, very powerful in their alignment and their energetics, that it's, they just resonate with truth, and anything that's not being kind of expressed or hidden or just a misalignment or whatever it is, will be brought up to the surface. And in that way, they're great mirrors as well, in that what we bring is reflected back to us, in a way. So if going back to one of your first points of, if you're kind of engaging with this place of, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and this is how I do it, and this is, all of that energy, that's just inviting a tough lesson, a hard lesson in in learning how to engage with these places with the proper amount of respect and reverence and humility, and all the points we've made. And it's yeah, it's mm, yeah. I think if we allow ourselves to be like coachable or teachable, or we're in that place of willingness to learn, there, it will happen. The lessons and the teachings will happen. Um, that can be gentle and really sweet and full of grace, or it can be quite difficult and challenging and tough to move through as well. I really think that's there's a certain beauty within that. There's a response. There's a call and response within these places, and in terms of what we bring is kind of reflected back to us. And you kind of spoke about that in the places you've been welcomed with open arms because of the energy and the respect you bring. So it's a fascinating thing to observe, and topic and conversation, and one I think is just going to become more and more important as we go, as these places come online more, and more people are returning to Indigenous ways and Indigenous practices, and that wanting that connection within, wanting to find the connection and the wisdom within. So